Or should I say good afternoon? Come on, buddy, you gotta get up. Nope. You have to get up. Good job.
Hey out there, YouTube land, it's Kuda Slayer once again. Just thought I'd do another informal video sharing some of my favorite online resources. After my last video, I had realized I'd left off a couple of channels, and of course due to technical difficulties, my list that I prepared was not coming up properly. So anyway, first off, role-playing aspect, how to be a great GM. Another kind of a lecture discussion channel in all aspects of role-playing game. They'll cover a lot of D&D, but they'll venture into other types of role-playing systems. He's been playing around. Guy here has been playing around with a lot of Talisman lately, but again, he covers pretty much various different aspects of role playing. How mainly from game master's perspective, and sometimes from the player's perspective as well. And he does a pretty good job. A lot of his videos do kind of drag. There's a few long ones here. Yeah, there's a lot of. Okay, I take that back. I thought they all kind of went more into the 40-minute range, but I seem to be proven wrong in that. Okay, well, I've got a couple much longer ones, and also there's some gameplay coverage when he does some of the live games as well. Fairly good channel. If you have a question about something, you can find an answer somewhere around here. Definitely another good channel to follow, especially like Seth Sikorsky. Bloopers on air. Hey, Seth Sikorsky. He's pretty much about the same vein, but doesn't really beat you up too much with information. Let's see. Terrible writing advice. Again, it may not exactly be role playing, but he does cover a lot of various different subjects that you may encounter in role playing games and such. And when you're working as a game master, you are writing a lot of your own material, so it's it's a pretty good source. It kind of takes it a little more sarcastically and makes fun of most of the subjects at hand, but it's for the most part it's entertaining. If you can't get at least a good chuckle, get at least some good information about how to write on your subjects, then of course similar vein, over sarcastically video writing. Okay, never mind. Overly sarcastic productions. Kind of same thing as terrible writing advice. They make fun of some of the problems with different subject matter, especially when it comes to writing, or general tropes that we often encounter when creating our own material or writing in general. Let's see. Then of course we have Hello Future Me. He's kind of the same thing. He'll cover a lot of different other subject matter and writing and franchise and lore and whatnot. I especially liked Zulu's Psychology. I thought that was a pretty good in-depth discussion I haven't seen before about the character. Of course, he's a big Avatar fan as well. But again, good channel to follow, especially either you're a geek or you're looking for writing advice. Okay, and now into web pages. Kind of do a quick brief into each one. First off, Project Atomic Rockets, or otherwise known as Project Ro. It's run by a man by named Wenchul Chang. He's actually kind of interesting. He was responsible for some of the early design work for the Ogre franchise. If you're not familiar with the cybernetic battle tanks from the old Steve Jackson games. But anyway, on this particular website, he covers, and cover is a weak term to describe what he does here. Basically, he will cover just about any subject you can imagine in science fiction, and a very hard lean towards hard science fiction. It pretty much, if you have any kind of questions about power, propulsion, weapons, government in the future setting, anything, he'll go through and listing. Like right now, he usually updates his website about once a week with a lot of it covering a lot of the old proposals for Spaceflight. Up here, a lot of these are the old proposed missions for spaceflight in the early days of NASA, especially during the Apollo program. Each of these various different little aspects of spaceflight, like one thing like space radiators, which is kind of a subject that gets glossed over a lot in science fiction and whatnot, even though they do play an important role. Almost anything you can imagine, especially like nuclear power in space, some of the dangers with radiation. It goes really, deep into the nuts and bolts about everything. If you don't, it's you get more than just an answer when you come looking through here. Most of the science, again, is very, very hard, and they don't kind of mince words about where, at some point, where hand-wavium or whatever terms you want to apply, they explain, get some of these concepts to actually work. But again, it's very informative, very in-depth, and it's kind of hard not to find at least some answers to any of your questions you might have. Let's see. And there's another website I love, the High Frontier. I've actually spoken to this guy about one of my gaming projects I've been working on for a while, and he's let me borrow some of his material. But basically what he does here is he took a very in-depth look into the O'Neill cylinder concept, especially how it applies to Gundam. He kind of goes through and basically breaks down what is life will be like in an O'Neill cylinder. He talks about generating gravity, the weather, which is something I don't hear too many people talk about, and it also goes into other aspects of the colonies and the Gundam franchise, and from something, it was a Jupiter, the Jupiter fleets, and like in the Crossbone Gundams, to the other different type of colonies, stations they built in the Gundam franchise. Really, really goes through and actually kind of proves on some of the designs that you see in the show. So it'll play out better with the real world than as they were described in the original concepts. Again, very enjoyable read, and very informative. Let's see. Okay. I found a few websites that actually describe the naming nomenclature for like missiles, aircraft, and other such systems in the mainly in the United States military, especially ever you ever kind of sitting there and you get brain fog because you hear so many different acronyms and everything, and what's the difference between a YF-12A and whatnot. But this one good website I found goes into a lot of depth about what each of those funky letters and numbers all mean. Especially great if you have to make up your own system or borrow this system to give a little bit of realism to your games. Let's see, there's another one. Again, goes into the same depth of about the numbering and letter nomenclature for different weapon systems, and even kind of try to spell it out even further than the other website. Let's see. And some of the fandom wikis. I actually found a Mechtin wiki, so when it started, and I don't think they carried out that much as far as it probably should have, but again, rather interesting. Of course, Neon Genesis Evangelion, another fandom wiki. And of course, you got the Gundam wikis, and that's a requirement right there. Let's see. Or Tarsulian. I already covered this in another video, didn't I? Again, if you come into any of the role-playing games like The Witcher, Cyberpunk 2020, Cyberpunk Red, Cyberpunk 2077, Teenage from Outer Space, of course Mechtin and whatnot. There's your go-to place for them. Girps. Girps is probably one of the next to Dungeons and Dragons, one of the older role-playing game systems. It's been around almost longer than Dirt has, but if you don't play Girps, one of the nice things about Steve Jackson games, they have pretty much produced a book on every subject you can imagine in the Girps series that will cover anything you can imagine. There's a lot of World War II books, which like the regular, World War II as we know it. Then there's a few alternative settings, like a Weird World War. Even some TV franchises, like there's some old editions, like for The Prisoner, which is actually kind of better primer lore book than even some of the official this is what you expect from a regular TV franchise source. But generally, they've been around for so long, and they've produced so many books. It's again, you can find a subject matter for anything, and if you don't play the game, there's always something you find interesting to add to your own. So it's Girps is always a great. And then here's a book recommendation, The High Frontier. This is the original book that started out the whole Neil cylinder sensation, or sensation taking the nation. This has been quite a few. I think there's been about 4 or 5 different editions of this book. There's almost been one in play at any given time. But this is the book that started it all. What influenced a lot of the early Gundam series, because every series there's been, or let's just say every universe in Gundam, there's always been some kind of O'Neill cylinder somewhere. But this is the original presentation, and again, it's a good read. It's like Starship Troopers, which should be required reading for any mecha fan or role player. Anyway, I think that's all I wanted to cover. But anyway, this is Kuda Slayer, and I hope you at least found something new to learn from this. And you have any questions or anything, or even other suggestions, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Get this doohickey here. There we go.